Hi everyone, and welcome. What a great song to welcome us in with. That's so fun. I want to keep singing. Hi everyone. I am Cheryl Cook, and I am the CEO of Avodah, and it's really a pleasure to see you all here. I started scrolling through to see who was here, and I recognize so many faces and names. So tonight, you will be introduced to four Avodah Corps members who are serving in Chicago, in New Orleans, in New York, and in Washington, D.C. And they're members of our 2020-2021 cohort of 74 Service Corps members who are doing critical justice and anti-poverty work. Work is that's always critical, but it's truer here in this pandemic year. And for those of you who might be new to Avodah, Avodah develops lifelong social justice leaders whose work is informed by Jewish values and who inspire the Jewish community to work toward a more just and equitable world. The Jewish Service Corps is Avodah's signature program, and it's similar in some ways to an AmeriCorps or a Peace Corps, but with a Jewish frame and with some added supports and benefits. So in the Jewish Service Corps, participants spend a year working at a not-for-profit, living communally in the Avodah Bayit, or house, and participating in an intensive leadership development program exploring justice issues through the lens of Jewish values. The Avodah Service Corps is just the beginning for our core members. So we know from 23 years of data that this is a lifelong commitment, and we're proud that the majority of our core members, over 80%, continue to be involved in justice work long after they move out of the Bayit. I'm also proud to note that we count so many of our alumni amongst our supporters, and I see some alumni faces in the room today. I also know we have some parents, grandparents, and family members of our current core members in the room, as well as family members of our alumni. So I just want to stop and say thank you all for being here, for supporting the hard work and crucial work that your family members are doing, and the crucial work that Avodah does to invest and nurture Jewish justice leadership for our community and our country. That said, I'm really eager to introduce you to the four young leaders that are here today. I'm going to ask that you keep yourself muted during the presentation, but if you have any specific questions about the work or the experience of our core members, you can ask in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to the questions or pull out themes from the questions as we go through all of this. Good? So first, I'm really grateful to have one of our Chicago core members, Noa, here with their placement supervisor, Saul, from Beyond Legal Aid. So Noa, let's just start. Can you share a little bit about your background and what brought you to Avodah?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Noa. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a core member in Chicago. I guess what brought me to Avodah is that in June 2020, I graduated from the University of Chicago, and in college, I spent a lot of time both academically and work in internships doing immigration and labor justice work. And when it came time to graduate college and think about like the next steps after that, I really wanted to commit myself to work that felt very much aligned with my values and very much felt aligned with how I hope to see the world work and actively work towards that, not only in like the nonprofit space, but also like at home and doing communal living.
Thanks for that. I love that, how I hope to see the world work. It's an aspiration for all of us. So Saul, can you tell us a little bit about Beyond Legal Aid? What does your organization do, and what do you do there?
Hi, everyone. So Beyond Legal Aid is a legal aid organization in Chicago. We are actually a nonprofit that we thrive ourselves. Our model specifically says that we are community located, community operated, and community directed, which means that we really value and partner with other organizations that are already in communities and have established relationships with community members, obviously always following the lead of our community partners, since we know that they are the ones with expertise and they know their community members and their communities needs. So we have 18 community partners all around the Chicagoland area and a couple in the Northwest suburbs and also North suburbs. But yeah, and I am the senior program administrator, so I work along all of our community partners and also our attorneys that we have in staff.
Thanks so much. And Noah, will you share what you do at Beyond Legal Aid and what your day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, so Beyond is a smaller nonprofit. So much like Saul, I wear a lot of hats, I guess. And I would say that my work on a day-to-day basis kind of falls into a couple of buckets, where I'm the intake and workshop coordinator at Beyond, which means that over the last year, I've led the project on kind of analyzing, assessing, and rewriting our intake forms and procedures through all of our clinics, and making sure that every initial interaction that community members have with an attorney or in a clinic with Beyond Legal Aid is trauma-informed and impactful and empowering to the community member when they come in. Two, the workshop part of that is that I work with Saul and the rest of the community empowerment team to kind of set up the procedures and also like enact the step-by-step process of coming from an idea that a community partner has, like, we've seen this overwhelming issue in our community. We want to address this in a much larger way. What is a Know Your Rights presentation or another form of event that we can put together in order to directly address that need? For example, like a few weeks ago, we did our second of a couple monthly DACA workshops, where since the change in the Biden administration, there's an overwhelming number of folks in Chicago who are trying to apply for DACA for either the first time or trying to renew for the first time in a really long time. And so we worked with one of our partners in LASE and like basically brought in like dozens of young people to a local high school in Little Village in Chicago and just like filled out DACA applications. Yeah, and then like other miscellaneous things of like doing legal research and writing briefs and helping attorneys in casework, filing FOIAs, and generally doing the more admin side of like community empowerment and also like the logistics of running a community directed legal aid office. Oh, I also like run intakes at one of our clinics, which is also another thing that I really love doing at Beyond.
So, Will, do you have anything to add to kind of all the things Noah's listing out? I know there's so many.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Noah, definitely sometimes it's too humble to like admit how impactful their work has been at Beyond and like obviously revamping our intake screening and like the questions that really go into an intake form. I don't think Noah likes to brag about how important those questions are, given that many of our community members are most of the times, facing a crisis and having an intake form like the one that Noah developed really like focuses on allowing time for them to breathe and like really tell their story so that they at least know that they're being heard, and it's we can humanize the process as much as possible. So yeah, Noah has definitely been a great addition to the team this past year.
Thank you. I really appreciate your elaborating. And I know sometimes the mechanics, right? They sound like mechanics, but as you just said, Saul, and Noah, you talked about, right? Those sometimes can be blockades. What I have heard, and so I'm sort of repeating back, that can be a blocker to someone really feeling like they can get through a system and it works for them or it doesn't. So it sounds like you're really examining those. Noah, you just said something that I just wanted to lean in on for a second. You talked about really looking at every interaction, right, being, trauma informed. And I just wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit on that as part, you were talking about that as part of your work, and I assume that's part of Beyond's work generally. Just say a little bit more about what that means and what that's meant in terms of your role.
Yeah, for sure. I think that a big motivation for me, like going to work for Beyond, was the model of community directed lawyering and working directly with community organizers to achieve more maybe non-traditional wins within the legal space. And I guess like a big part of that for me, or at least like my understanding of that, is the word empowerment doesn't really necessarily, to me, like encapsulate the entirety of that kind of like power that can happen when community members like know the inside and outs of the law. Like one of our community partners, Blocks Together, one of their lead organizers, Caro, is incredible. And one of her like major tactics in organizing, and has been organizing for 15 years, is knowing the law better than any politician or any like obstacle in the city of Chicago, and there are many. And so I think what I see that as a major part of being trauma informed, as well as creating a space that promotes the ability for community members to share their stories and their narratives and like why they're coming to us for help. And so being incredibly intentional about centering the experiences of community members, even when it comes to the initial question of like, how can I help you? What brings you into the clinic today? Like even asking like, what are your goals and what do you hope to get out of this experience, feels like a shift in the way that like the law can operate, and the way that the law can be a tool for community organizers and a tool for community members, as opposed to an exclusive club of people who have expensive degrees.
Thanks for elaborating. I appreciate that. I'd love to hear a little bit about, you've been working remotely this year, right? In this pandemic year, that is not usually how Avodah navigates the world, right? But this is the world we're in. So what's that look like? How have you navigated work?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently sitting in the chair that I usually sit in every single day in our lovely dining room in the Bayit. Usually there's around 5 to 7 of us who are all sitting at this long table in our dining room, all on calls with our respective placements. It's often a wild ride, like being in staff meeting in the afternoon. And then on the other end of the table, my roommate Roxy is on a call with the detention center, like trying to get a client out of detention and make bail. Or like there's numerous other examples of like all of us being in the same room and this like sound of people doing things. But I think that in terms of working at Beyond, it's been interesting, like never having met my coworkers until like 2 months ago in person and having worked so closely. But it's definitely been incredibly rewarding. I started going in person to run intakes at Enlace, which is one of our partners on the west side of Chicago. And so going in like once a week to do intakes for 4 hours and like actually being able to meet people in person, and feels like such a drastically different experience to conducting intakes on the phone, and feels a lot more rewarding in that kind of way.
I just want to really name that how hard remote work can be and how amazing it is that you've been able to do it for all these months, right? That you've been able to do it and forge relationships with people over time. That's not easy over phone and video, and that's pretty amazing. And I hope as you get the joy of now being in person, you can also hold that Saul, I just wanted to hear a little bit about what it's meant for you and Beyond Legal Aid to have Noah on board.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it has definitely been an amazing partnership with Avodah, having core members. Noah is actually our third core member that we hosted at Beyond. And with all of them, with the three of them that I've gotten the pleasure to work with, they've all left and brought different ideas and different impacts to Beyond Legal Aid that we still use, right? So like, um, I definitely appreciate all the work and the new initiatives that each of them has come with. And I also love especially like how each of them, although that they never met or they never were here at the same time, they all somehow stay connected and they all know each other. And I really love that as someone who like is now friends with the former two Avodah core members. It's really great to create this um, partnerships and long-lasting relationships with them. And like you were saying, like really we really also value the leadership of them. So for us, it's really important to allow Noah or any other fellow Avodah fellow to really express themselves and really like run with the project and create their own projects that really best fits their interest and really like focuses on what they want to do and what they're going to be doing afterwards um, once they're not a Beyond anymore. But yeah, it has definitely been great, and um, it's just been an amazing partnership.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for saying all that. It's music to my ears to hear, and it's exciting to have relationships with organizations like Beyond that last for multiple years. We're really proud, and we're really proud of the work you're doing. So thank you. Noah, I'd just love to hear what this work has meant for you and what this means for you in terms of your possible future plans after Avodah.
Yeah, I think that, like, as I said at the beginning, like a big reason for me to do Avodah was to be able to work or do work that felt aligned with my values and my like core beliefs as a person. And I think that it's been very much rewarding in that kind of way. And it's like filled that expectation, I guess, in a lot of ways. And it's also just like introduced me to like incredible people who are doing really interesting and unique and special work in Chicago, which is a city that I love and hope to stay in for a very long time. But yeah, so I like came into Beyond being very like excited to be an immigration attorney. I had never had like done like classes in college about like the immigration system and asylum law and stuff like that, and was like very excited to like finally like, yes, this is my time. I'm going to be able to like help practice immigration law. The first few weeks of doing it, actually, I learned that I very much don't like it. The paperwork is a lot, and it's just a very like frustrating system that I think that there are many people who are very capable to do that work. But I think in a different way, I think working at Beyond has like shifted my focus more towards housing and labor, where I think like one of the biggest learning points and perspectives, I think, from this last year has been witnessing from a very unique vantage point, the like incredible housing crisis that the city of Chicago and like the rest of the country is in and like will be in the near future, like seeing how drastically COVID has impacted many people's abilities to pay for housing, stay in housing, and avoid eviction. And also on the flip side of that, seeing how like, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of resources for folks in the near future. So that being said, I think that like working at Beyond has like shifted my focus and like really fired me up in that kind of way to like go to law school and like do that kind of work. Yeah.
Noah and Saul, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
So now I am grateful. I know we're going to be shifting the screen. I'm really grateful to have 3 more Service Corps members join us this evening. We have Michelle in Washington, D.C., Abby in New York City, and Hayle in New Orleans. Hi, welcome. So I'm going to start with you, Michelle. I'd love to hear a little bit about the organization where you're working, Food and Friends in DC.
Hi, yeah, of course. So my name's Michelle. I use she, her pronouns. Also, apologies in advance if I need to take a water break. I completely lost my voice the other day, but it's back. So I work at Food and Friends. It's an organization that provides nutritionally tailored meals and nutrition counseling to people living with chronic illnesses in the DMV area. We started our services in 1988, targeting the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and later expanded to other illnesses like diabetes, cancers, renal diseases, and more. And our clients receive weekly or bi-weekly deliveries based on their diet plan. And they can either pop their home delivered meals right into the microwave, or they have the option of a grocery to go plan, which includes non-perishable foods.
Thanks. I'm so curious because, right, you're talking about delivery of food, you're talking about clients. So can you talk a little bit about how the work of Food and Friends has changed during COVID?
Yeah, so we've stayed in person throughout the pandemic, which was definitely challenging and very impressive that we were able to do that. The main goal of that was just to make sure that our clients were being taken care of. But it's definitely, we've had to change a lot. We deliver less food per delivery, but more times a week. Whereas, the opposite. We used to deliver about 3 times a week, and now it's once a week or every other week. So adjusting those, the amount was a big aspect. We also, of course, have food and friends. We've definitely continued to deliver throughout the pandemic, but the friends aspect has been a little bit more difficult. Our client base really relies on our interactions through through the drivers and interactions with staff. But since all of them are immunocompromised, they're dealing with consequences of social isolation, and they can't interact in person with family or friends or meet new people. So to address this issue, I recently began for our first client social hours. And this project was mainly to ensure that clients felt involved in the community. They were still meeting other clients and caregivers, and just having space to play games and vent about their feelings. But it all became virtual.
Yeah, it has been hard, and it's exciting to hear the creativity you're trying to bring to crack that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what your own day-to-day has looked like.
Yeah, so I'm the new client coordinator. So my job was supposed to be going into new clients' homes, giving them their first delivery and orienting them to the service, and just being their go-to person if they had any questions. But because of COVID, I've been calling those clients and making sure they understand what our service entails, making sure they know how to cancel a delivery or what our policies entail, and also working on other like office jobs, whatever someone on the client services might need me to do. But now that the COVID numbers in DC have gone down, we've been conducting the in-person deliveries again. So about once a week lately, I've been going into clients' homes, giving them their food, doing a safe distance mask orientation if they prefer that way, or just continuing to do the phone calls, among other projects like a toy drive in December, and other exciting things.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, right, as you've started to meet clients again, what's that meant for you, right? What's the work meant for you, or what kind of stories are you hearing from them? I'd just love to hear a story or what this is feeling like for you.
Yeah, it's been so great. I think that's my favorite part about working at Food and Friends, just having those interactions, whether they're coming to the workplace and I'm giving them their food for them to pick up, or I'm driving to their place. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I was driving to one of our clients and I got back into the car after I like gave them their food and a microwave that they needed. And I'm like, okay, this something's off about the car right now. And I see the tire pressure lights on, and the client's walking around and comes over to me and is like, is everything all right? Because he saw that I was kind of looking frazzled and I was on the phone. And I told him I had a flat tire, and he went around back with me to check if we had a spare. And he completely helped and changed the tire all by himself. And it was very kind. It felt very like symbiotic. I had just given him his food for the week, and he helped me get back to Food and Friends, which was very necessary.
I love that.
But yeah, they're very thankful constantly. They're always, of course, they're in a very hard place. Maybe they just got a new diagnosis, or other problems that they're facing in their daily lives, and are very appreciative, which really helps me as a staff member and everyone else in the organization keep going.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that story, and thank you for sharing about your work. Let me move on to Hayle. So Hayle, you're a unanimous jury specialist at the Promise of Justice Initiative in New Orleans. Can you tell me about the organization and your role there?
Yeah, totally. It's great to be here talking with you guys. Thank you for having me. So I work at the Promise of Justice Initiative, which is basically a nonprofit law office. We do a lot of different things. There's a capital appeals side of the office that does basically defense work for people on death row. There's a civil litigation part that works on things like jail conditions and over detention. And then I work on a project that is basically trying to get justice for people who were convicted by non-unanimous juries. Up until about a year ago, or 2 years ago, I guess, in Louisiana, you basically could be convicted if only 10 out of 12 of the jurors on your jury agreed that you were guilty. And that was a relic of the Jim Crow era, really designed to disenfranchise Black voters and Black jurors. So that's the project that I work on, and we are currently trying to get some kind of justice for over 1,500 people who are currently serving time based on these unconstitutional and racist juries. And yeah, as a specialist, I basically do like all of the non-legal work. I do a lot of mailings. I reach out to clients a lot, talk to clients and family members, update people on their cases. I've gotten to do a little bit of work at the legislature because that's kind of another method that we've been trying to figure out if there's a way to get some relief for folks that way. But yeah, I get to do a lot of different things and really enjoy being able to be involved in a really important fight for justice.
Thanks, Hayle. And I'm just curious, you sort of rattled off a lot of different kinds of work that you do and talking to clients. I'd love to just hear a little bit more about the clients you serve. Can you talk a little bit more about what they are telling you and what your work has meant and what the work of the Promise for Justice has really meant for them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so because they're non-unanimous juries, in the legal system, as we know, a lot of people take plea deals. And so the cases that end up going to trial are often higher level crimes. And so certainly most of my clients are, convicted of more egregious crimes like murder, rape, kidnapping, all of that. And there's always a reason why some jurors didn't agree with the verdict. There's basically a study that was done by the Innocence Project in New Orleans, which is another placement that one of my housemates works at, that showed that you're more likely to be innocent if you're convicted by non-unanimous jury, which seems pretty intuitive. But all that's to say that like it's a lot of people who have really been kind of cast off by society and, you know, believed to be bad people that shouldn't deserve a second chance. And, you know, I get letters from people who say like, I haven't talked to anyone outside of this prison in 10 years. I, you know, thought that there was never any chance that I could possibly get out of here. Most people are serving life sentences. If not actually convicted to life, then, you know, their life expectancy is such that, you know, they're not going to make it past their 60-year sentence or whatever it is. So it's definitely an exciting project that is providing a lot of hope to people. And it's also a frustrating project that, you know, like Noah was saying, it gets really bogged down in all of the bureaucracies of the legal system. And it's sometimes hard to keep pushing forward. But I am constantly really inspired by just how hopeful my clients are. And, you know, people who have really been given all the reasons to be entirely hopeless just still believe that there's a way for them to be free. And yeah, I just find it super motivating and inspiring, and I'm really, really grateful to work with all of them.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Hayle. Abby, I'd love to hear about the work that you're doing with Footsteps in New York.
Hi. Oh, this is so exciting. Thank you again so much for having me and all of us. So hi, I'm Abby. I'm with the New York cohort, she, her pronouns. And I work with Footsteps, which is such a cool organization. We are the only nonprofit agency in North America that provides resources for people who are looking to leave or have left the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, which is, for those who may not know, a very insular, like fundamentalist religious community. My members, before they left, had very little access to internet, to the outside world, to secular education even. So, you know, it's a lot, it's kind of a culture shock, right? To come out, as they call it, into the world, or to become an OTD, or which stands for off the derech, or off the path. And so a lot of my job, I'm the community engagement associate at Footsteps, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Like, how do I get our members, like the people that we serve, to engage with us and with each other, to create a new community for themselves outside of the ultra-Orthodox community, which once they leave, often, you know, they forces them to cut off ties with a lot of their supports, their family, their friends, their social networks. So how do we build a new one? So what that's turned into during COVID and the day-to-day is I do a lot of virtual event planning. It can be anything from an evening book club to a D&D game to our children's group, Second Generation. So for the children of our members, I run a monthly group for them to connect, socialize, do some art together. And it's been a really, really fun time. Just getting to get some levity out of these people in their situation. Because, you know, I play games pretty much for a living, in addition to planning these larger scale social events that gets the much broader community together. So yeah, that's the deal.
Thanks, Abby. And I'd love to hear some of the highlights for you in doing this work.
Absolutely. I think the biggest highlight actually has been our most recent large social event is called Celebrating You. We typically hold it in late May, early June. It was formerly called Footsteps Celebrates, but, you know, we wanted to make it more personalized. And that has been our graduation plus party. All of our members' annual accomplishments, celebrations, achievements really get highlighted during this program. And so what we did is we had members submit, you know, what are you proud of this year? What have you achieved? And it doesn't have to be academically oriented. It doesn't have to be a graduation, which in itself is an absolutely remarkable accomplishment for this community. But it could be something along the lines of, I kept my mental health together this year, right? Like, we had COVID and I kept it together, or I found a therapist, or I managed to get this amazing custody agreement in the divorce with my religious spouse, and I get to see my kids, right? Which can be absolutely life-changing. And so there were all these different stories of success, right? That we got to hear one after the other. Everything from schoolwork to jobs to personal achievements, which was so much fun. There was such levity and connection, and it was one of the events that we had more members come to than we have all year. One of my coworkers, who's a member herself, got to see somebody who had formerly moved to Canada, and hadn't been at a lot of social events that normally take place physically in New York City, and all of a sudden was like on the Zoom, and she's like, "Oh, I haven't seen you. It's so great to see you." So there's this levity and connection and delightfulness that comes directly out of something that I had a huge hand in planning and putting together. So it was really rewarding.
It's nice to hear about those celebration moments, especially when the work is so intense, right? All of our work is so intense. And so I think I really appreciate you raising those moments. So let me just switch gears. We've been talking a lot about work, but as you know, the Avodah Service Corps has 3 pillars: a year of service at a not-for-profit, communal living, and justice learning rooted in Jewish values. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how your experiences have related to your Jewish identity.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So, I mean, I really came into Avodah kind of skeptical of the Jewish piece of the program. My cousin did Avodah, and so I knew about it, but I kind of wasn't going to apply because I was nervous about not being Jewish enough. Certainly Avodah is a Jewish pluralistic space, but I had very much like an inferiority complex about not being Jewish enough. But yeah, it's just been really an amazing opportunity to kind of explore what Judaism looks like for me. I feel so supported by my housemates, and doing that exploration, I feel really grateful because I've learned so much from them, people who grew up going to Jewish day school and Hebrew school and had access to a lot more religious education than I did, and just have so much knowledge that I just feel so grateful to have access to and to be able to learn from them. That's been an amazing piece of the program that I honestly didn't even expect.
Thanks, I really appreciate that. It's great to hear, and always nice to hear that piece. I know people come to Avodah for so many different reasons, and it's always exciting to hear about the piece that's kind of surprising that you get. Abby or Michelle, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm just feel like it extended my Jewish belongingness, if that makes sense. Like, I'm very used to being in Jewish spaces, so it really reaffirmed that. And it's just the simple like Shabbat dinners every week has just been a very nice tradition that our house has made a priority to ensure that we're continuing our community aspect. Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And I know you're all living in community with about a dozen roommates, right? It's hard to imagine for people who have not lived like that. So I'd love to hear some of the highlights of living in community this year.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in on that. I think that a lot of my highlights for the program have come specifically from the community aspect. Like, that was something that I heard a lot was, you join Avodah for the social justice, and you really stay for like the connections you make in the house that you live in. And I think that I've been really blessed too, because like COVID has been hard and isolating for all of us and for a lot of the clients that we serve across all our organizations. And I had this opportunity as an Avodonic to live in community with other people. And so isolation was never really the problem, right? There were so many people around me. And I really loved how our house actually had this fun tradition of like throwing ourselves parties every weekend. So one of our favorites was like, we had a spice party. It was show up as your own spice. And you can interpret this as like a spice from your kitchen or a spice girl. It was up to you, but you had to walk a catwalk as your spice. and answer a couple of prompts and really embody the character. It was a huge improv challenge for all of us. And so that was super fun. And we have like a house Instagram going and all sorts of fun stuff. And now that we're in one of the New York Bites moved locations. And so now that we're in a new location that it has a backyard, we made an event of putting a vegetable garden in. And now we have veggies that we're growing as a house together. And there are little updates on the house plants. And so it's really those small, organic, everyday things that I've like found immense joy in and have really been highlights of the program for me.
Thanks. Hayle or Michelle, do you want to add anything about the community aspect and what it's meant for you?
I guess I'll just add one little anecdote about that I meant to share earlier about Judaism, and which is also about community, which is just that when I was really first starting to try to learn more about Judaism, I felt like I didn't know like the biblical stories enough. And so I got from the library a Jewish children's Bible, and we spent like, I don't know, it was like at least a month of like most nights reading part of a story out loud together, which was really fun. And it was also just really cool because like those stories are very simplified, obviously, because it's a children's Bible. And it was fun to just like hear people's additions, like the other things they knew about the stories. And I really loved that. And it also similarly, like what Abby was saying, just felt very organic and like, we just decided to do it. It wasn't a program. We just made it happen, and it was really fun.
Yeah, definitely similarly, just the whatever our house just wants to do in the moment, and some more pre-planned things. We've been watching a lot of TV shows together, which has been great. And we've had a lot of karaoke nights. We've had themed Shabbats. We had a salmon Shabbat once where we all wore different salmon colored clothes, which was very fun, and ate salmon, of course. And I vividly remember during orientation when I like didn't really know many people, but we had a night free and we decided to bike down to the monuments. And it was just so beautiful at night and a very nice bonding moment.
Thanks. It's great to hear. And I think in this year of a pandemic, when so many people have been isolated, it's I'm a little jealous, but it sounds really great. So my last question for each of you, I know your service year is ending soon. What is next for each of you? And I'll throw it to Michelle first, and then we'll go to Abby, and then we'll go to Hayle.
Hi, I'm still figuring it out. My supervisor's on this call. Hi, Phyllis. I'm probably staying at Food and Friends though, in a different but similar job. I'm really excited about it.
That's so awesome. I also will be staying at least for a little bit at the Promise of Justice Initiative. The project that I'm on is going to be wrapping up pretty soon, but I'm excited to be able to stay on for a few months just to see it through. And definitely staying in New Orleans beyond that. I really, really love this city and really want to stay.
Congratulations to both of you. Oh my goodness. Especially Michelle. I remember talking to you about like after Avodah. So that's so exciting. I'm going completely into left field with my after Avodah plans and going across the country, but keeping with the theme of Jewish social justice. So I'm going to go from New York to Portland, Oregon to be the RA for Tivnu, which is a gap year program out there for like a pre-college gap year. And they essentially do the same thing. They have a bunch of people interested in Jewish social justice living in a bayit together and doing entry-level nonprofit work, and figuring out the world and service that way. And I'm going to be kind of their RA house mentor, helping in leading the community building and kind of creating the space that they want to create for that year. So I'm really excited to keep paying it forward.
Thank you so much. Really exciting, Michelle, Abby, and Hayle. Thanks for sharing your stories, for being here tonight. And I just want to thank everyone who has listened, who has been curious, who wanted to be here. Thank you for supporting Avodah, for being part of the Avodah family. Michelle, Abby, and Hayle, we're really proud, and I'm really proud of the work that you're doing. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. I hope you take some of the stories and bring them with you and share them with others. We're really proud of the work we're doing, and thank you. Have a good night.